Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I want to talk to you about relaunching your book. Now, whether your launch failed or whether you've had a successful launch, relaunching your book is a no-brainer. It's one of the best kept secrets, and it's one of the things that I think every author needs to do. But for some reason, we have a hard time talking people into actually doing it. So in this section, I'm going to talk about what is a relaunch, why should you do it, how do you do it, what are all the steps to do it, and why I think this is a really great next step to get more readers and to get more customers from your book. So your book launch flopped. Maybe you put everything you had into it and it just didn't work. Or maybe you said, if I build it, they will come, and they didn't come. Well, what if I told you that there's a strategy that you can use? It's a top secret strategy that some of the best, most successful authors use even when they have a failed launch. It's like CPR for your book launch. It brings it back to life and it helps you sell more books long term. Well, that's what I'm going to be walking through in this video, and this strategy is called the relaunch. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what is it, why should you use it, how can you do it, and the exact steps to relaunch your book so that your failed launch doesn't have to be a failed book. A lot of people after their launch, they start asking this question, I've launched, now what? I want to introduce you to two people. So the first one is who we call Failed Launch Fred. Okay, Failed Launch Fred said, if I build it, they will come. They didn't come. He said, I don't have to worry about marketing. I'll just pay someone else to do that, or I'll leave that to somebody else. And Failed Launch Fred, well, his launch failed. It didn't do too hot. And now he's looking back with regret, thinking, I spent all this time on this book. It didn't really sell. And then there's another person. This is called Successful Launch Sally. So Successful Launch Sally, she did all the things. She probably worked with us at selfpublishing.com. She followed the steps. She sold books. But the interesting thing is, they're both in a similar place after the launch, which is figuring out, how do I sell books long term? Because the launch blip has come and gone, and now they need to sell books. And so there's a couple things that I recommend in this instance. Number one, you need to go back to the fundamentals of a bestseller. So if you haven't checked out my video on the fundamentals of a bestseller, you need to check it out and make sure, is my book following those fundamentals? Because as I mentioned in that video, if you don't follow the fundamentals, you're pouring water into a leaky bucket. But then a really great strategy for most people is to relaunch your book. So first off, what's a relaunch? Well, a relaunch is a focused promotion around your already published book. And you can treat this just like it's the first time you ever launched the book, but there's 5 types of relaunches. Number one is the just because relaunch. So just like the name says, you can do this for any reason. Hey, I'm relaunching the book. You don't have to make a big deal about this in the sense that, hey, I've already published it before. Sometimes as authors, we get way in our head. We think, oh, I've already published it. No, this is a promotion. We're doing a launch. It doesn't matter that the book's already out. We're relaunching the book just because we're doing another focused promotion around the book. That's number one. Number two is launching additional formats. This is the cheat code. This is my favorite type of relaunch. It's something that we recommend a lot, which is, okay, maybe I'll launch the Kindle book first. I do a bunch of focused promotion around that. Then a month later, I launch the print book. I do a bunch of focused promotion around that. Then a month later, I launched the audiobook. I do a focused promotion around that. So that's kind of like a relaunch, but it's really, I'm launching each format separately. I've got 3 different launches over the course of 3 months. I'm launching something with this book. So if you haven't launched additional formats, or maybe you just kind of put it out there and you didn't do a big launch around it, well, this is a really great option. Do a dedicated relaunch around an additional format for your book. The third type of relaunch is a new and improved relaunch. So maybe you published the book, maybe you self-published it, maybe you kind of haphazardly put it out. Well, you can do a new and improved launch, which is really just leveling up some things around the book itself. So maybe you're improving the cover, maybe you're updating the title, the subtitle, maybe some basic content improvements around the launch. Now, it's not a strategy that I'll talk about later, which is a complete overhaul of the whole book. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. This is minor improvements and tune-ups for a new and improved launch. The fourth type of relaunch is an anniversary relaunch. You've probably seen this with some of your most successful, most popular, maybe most favorite books, is they do an anniversary launch. They say, hey, this is the 10-year anniversary of Think and Grow Rich. This is the 10-year anniversary of the 5 love languages. And so they do some sort of updates or improvements, but it's an anniversary-based relaunch of an already successful book. And this is where I just want to kind of put an asterisk here. If they're doing this for the most successful books on the planet, do you think there's probably a reason why you should do this for your book, regardless of how successful it was? Yes. Right? So maybe not an anniversary launch, but maybe you do one of these other relaunches. And then the fifth and final type of relaunch, this is the updated and revised relaunch. This is probably one of the most popular. It's also one of the most time intensive. Now, updated and revised means exactly what it sounds like. You're doing a major overhaul of the book itself. Now, this is exactly what I did with my book called Published. And the book was out there. It was making a huge impact. Years later, we published thousands of more books through selfpublishing.com. And I remember going back and reading it and thinking, this sucks. I'm like, this is the best that I got. No, it's not. I need to rewrite this book. We've learned so much. There's better frameworks. There's better things, all that stuff. And so that's the joy of self-publishing is I said, hey, I'm going to do that. And so I did an updated and revised launch. Now I went in depth. I rewrote the whole book. I changed the subtitle. I changed the cover. It's probably 50, 60, 70% net new content. And I flushed a lot of the old content and I relaunched the book. Now, this is the most time intensive relaunch. So for most people, they jump to this. They think, oh, I got to do an updated, revised relaunch. And if you haven't done one of the other ones, I would not recommend starting with this, because if you wrote a great book, you barely marketed it, and then it just didn't sell as well. You don't need to go rewrite the whole book. Chances are that's just an aversion or a distraction from what you actually need to do, which you need to go market that book, right? So I just want to put a massive disclaimer on this, that I did this after 5 years of that book selling really well, learning more around the concept and stuff like that. So for most people, don't start with this, but if you got a book that was published a while back and you're thinking, hey, maybe a relaunch is the way, do an updated and revised relaunch. No matter which relaunch you choose, you need to set realistic goals for your relaunch. So treat it just like a launch and set goals around the relaunch of the book. I'll use my book as a case study. So with my book Published, I said, I got a few goals here. Number one, I want to make this the best book that exists for people who are writing and publishing a book. So I want this to be the book that when someone decides to write a book, or when you hear about someone who's writing and publishing a book, you tell them you got to read Published. And it wasn't that. And so I said, hey, I'm going to make this the best book, so that it brings in referrals, it brings in sales, it brings in leads, it grows the business. And the result of that is, since relaunching this book, the book has brought in tens of millions of dollars in sales for selfpublishing.com. It's pretty crazy. So that was kind of the business focus, but then also the selfless reader-based focus. But then I also had a few concrete goals around book sales and book milestones. So number one, I wanted to hit 2,500 reviews. We're still on the journey. I think we just passed 2,000 reviews on the book. So if you've read the book, if you want to go leave a review on the book, you'll help us in that quest. Number two, I want to sell 1 million copies of this book. We're still on the journey to those 1 million copies sold. And then number three, I wanted to put more emphasis on the audiobook. So I recorded the audiobook myself this time. And I said, hey, I've got an audio podcast. I've got, YouTube channel, all this stuff. I want to get the audiobook in front of more people. And I want to do a better job marketing the audiobook as part of this process. So that's all the types of relaunches. That's the one that I chose. And that's the realistic goals that I set around the relaunch for my book. Now, whether you're relaunching your book or launching your book for the first time, there's a big difference between what I call the Lamborghini launch and the Toyota Camry approach. All right. So the Lamborghini, if you know anything about Lamborghinis, I'm not a big car guy. I'm not a big nice car guy. But if you know anything about them, you know that they're expensive. They use a lot of fuel, and shoo, they're going in a flash. This is how most people treat their book launches, right? They spend a bunch of time, they spend a bunch of money, they spend a bunch of energy, they focus it all on this launch week, then they drop it like it's hot, they move on, and they don't think about it again. Well, guess what? Gone in a flash, just like your launch week is gone, so is your book. So we don't want to do that. And this is why we believe in relaunches so much. It's because we want you to follow the Toyota Camry approach. Okay. If you know anything about Toyota Camrys, I've had multiple in my lifetime. You know that they're not flashy, but they are durable. They just keep running. They just keep going. I think I had one with 150,000 miles, one with 200,000 plus miles, because they just keep going. Right? They've got good fundamentals. They keep trucking. This is what we want your book to do, right? You got good fundamentals, you got good stuff under the hood, obviously, but then you want to just keep selling month after month, year after year. So in order to do that, you've got to treat your book like a Toyota Camry, right? You've got to treat your book like this thing that you want to set up for success so that it sells months and years from now. So to do this, you've got to have an economic engine. right? Just like any good car has a good engine, well, your book needs to have a good engine to sell books long term. So there's kind of 4 paths to selling more books, or 4 economic engines, if you will, that help you sell books long term. Number 1 is the full-time author. So if that's you, your income is the book royalties, right? So you need to sell a ton of books, and the book royalties feed into the economic engine. You're probably publishing multiple books because you need good read through, like the Malcolm Gladwells of the world, the Seth Godins of the world. You're a full-time author, right? Now, this is the hardest path, but it is possible. It's just going to take multiple books. Number 2 is the freelance author. So maybe you're using this book and sure, it's bringing in some royalty checks, but maybe it's not enough to pay the bills. So in addition to that, you do freelancing. Maybe it's freelance writing. Maybe it's freelancing around the topic of your book. That's the freelance author. Then the third option, this is my personal favorite. This is the authorpreneur. So this means, sure, you're bringing in book royalties and all that stuff, but more importantly, this is what I'm doing. You're bringing in revenue from paying customers. Now, all of a sudden, you got a massive economic engine. Like my book published, massive economic engine, brings in millions of dollars a year in customers for selfpublishing.com. Well, then guess what? That means that I can reinvest some of those dollars to sell more books, which brings more customers, and the flywheel just starts spinning faster and faster and faster, right? So that's the authorpreneur path. And then the 4th path is the speaking author. Okay, I also do some of this. It's not my main thing. If you're a speaker and that's your main thing, it's a great path. Or you can add this as an ancillary revenue arm for your business. But this means, sure, you're getting royalties, the book's selling, but also you're doing speaking gigs. So maybe you're getting speaking fees to come speak. Maybe you're using the speaking gigs to sell books, all right? But there's kind of this fun ecosystem where the books feed the speaking feeds the books, right? And that flywheel spins faster and faster and faster. So no matter which path you're taking, it's important that you have an economic engine to drive the Toyota Camry approach. Now, why should you relaunch your book? There's a bunch of reasons, but I'll give you 5 specific ones. The first one is you're going to reach new audiences and you're going to revive your sales. Now, this is a big injection of sales, of momentum, of promotions, all those things to reach new audiences and to sell a whole lot more copies of your book in a focused period. Secondly, you might want to incorporate feedback, right? That's what I did. Your book's been out in the wild for a year, maybe even a few years, maybe a decade. You can take the feedback on what didn't resonate or what you've learned since then, incorporate it into the book, then relaunch it. Now you've got a better asset that actually helps people on a higher level. Thirdly, you might be using this as part of a rebrand. I kind of did that a little bit too. We were rebranding from Self-Publishing School to selfpublishing.com. The book published, the updated and expanded edition. That was a great way to do that and kind of plant our flag. We've got new frameworks. I'm talking about them in the book. I'm talking about the new business instead of the old business. So you can use the book relaunch as part of a rebrand. Number 4, you're leveraging new marketing strategies. So maybe these are strategies that didn't exist when you first launched the book, or maybe they're strategies that you just didn't use. Well, now you can leverage those strategies in the relaunch of your book. And then number 5, you're resetting the Amazon algorithm. Okay, so a relaunch says, hey, this book is still relevant. So your book may have dropped off into obscurity in Amazon and other online retailers. Now it's bubbling up back to the top. You're getting momentum and sales around the book. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of how to relaunch your book. So before you begin, first and foremost, you need to read all the steps thoroughly and work with your coach through the relaunch process. You also need to pick the type of relaunch that you're going to do. I'm going to assume that you've done that up front. And then number 1, you're going to review and update the book content if you choose to. So maybe you're adding content, maybe you're editing content, maybe you're reformatting the book, updating the book cover, the title, etc. That's the first thing. Secondly, you're going to update your book's metadata. Now, without getting super nerdy on this is stuff that you've probably already heard me talk about. It's your keywords. You're going to update those. It's your categories, your book descriptions, right? And if you're launching a book with a new listing, you must use a new ISBN for every version of the book. Number 3, set a relaunch date. So you want to use the 6-week launch plan that we talk about, but that starts with setting a date. And this is really important so you don't just haphazardly do this. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do a relaunch, but you just kind of willy-nilly do random stuff. No, set a relaunch date just like you would set a launch date. Number 4, create a marketing plan. Okay, this means you need to develop promotional content. You need to use Amazon's marketing tools. Maybe you're doing a Kindle Countdown deal. You're doing a free book promo. Follow our MVP launch or traditional launch plan and create a marketing plan for the relaunch of your book. Number 5, this is a step that I recommend for almost everyone, maybe not everyone, and that's to unpublish the old version of your book on KDP. Okay, so there's kind of a couple different schools of thought here. If you've got a book that has less than 10 or 20 reviews, you probably just want to unpublish it. Okay, so that means you're going to reach out to KDP, you're going to go unpublish, you're going to click inside the back end of Amazon and all that stuff. You can work with KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. You're unpublishing the book. You're waiting 72 hours, make sure that it's completely removed. You do it for all the different formats, and then you're publishing a new version of your book. Now, what happens though if you're someone who says, hey, I've got 100 reviews, or maybe I've got 1,000 reviews? Well, there's a couple options that you can do here. First off, and this is what a lot of traditional published books do, is you can just publish a new version of the book and keep the old version of the book. Okay, so you've got the old version there, it's got 100 reviews, 200 reviews, and then you got a new version. Now, this is a little bit of an advanced strategy, but you might do the updated one and then get the reviews transferred. This is rolling the dice. Amazon may or may not do this for you, so it's a little bit sophisticated. But if you choose to do an updated version, you can say, hey, this is maybe a new ISBN or whatever else. Let's transfer the reviews to this book. You may or may not be able to have Amazon do it, so it's a little bit of advance for most people. 99.9% of you watching this right now, you just need to unpublish the old version of your book. Number 6, publish the new version on KDP. So Kindle Direct Publishing, you're going to go through the traditional upload process on the back end. You're going to verify launch dates. You're going to set your relaunch date. You're going to do all that stuff. You're going to click publish to make sure that your book is ready and available on your relaunch date. Number 7, communicate with your audience. So now's the time to where maybe you're following our launch process. Let them know about the launch date. Let them know that it's coming up. Notify existing people who have read your book, so readers and stuff like that. Hey, I'm relaunching the book. Contact KDP. Make sure you got all your ducks in a row so that when your relaunch date comes, everyone knows about it and everyone's ready for it. So that's it. That's the relaunch strategy. That's why you should do it. That's what to know about it, and that's how to do it. Please, please, please follow this process. This is one of those things that I think there's so many authors, they leave a ton of money on the table because they don't relaunch their book. I think about for myself, if I wouldn't have relaunched an updated and revised version of Published, and I thought about putting it off a bunch of times, I put it off a bunch of times, I thought about not even doing it, I would have literally missed out on tens of millions of dollars in sales in my business. So my question for you is, what are you leaving on the table if you don't relaunch your book? I hope you enjoyed this video. I want you to do 2 things right now. Number 1, if you're committed to relaunching your book, comment relaunch, and I'd love to hear your biggest takeaways from this video. I read and respond to every single comment. So if this is helpful, comment with the word relaunch and let me know what was most helpful from this video. And then number 2, maybe most important, check out the other videos on this channel. So we'll link up some marketing videos along with this video, but we've got a bunch of advanced stuff around how to launch successfully. The MVP launch that I talked about, we got a video on that. The traditional book launch that I talked about, we got a video on that, and so much more to help you successfully launch your book and use your book to grow your business. So comment below, let me know what you learned, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.